All right. So we have everyone here. We once again
Mhm.
we want to welcome everyone who has joined our session. Just so you know, I'm going to have each of our panelists kind of just give a short introduction of themselves, and then we're going to jump into some questions. We will leave some time at the end to answer any questions you all may have. We just ask that you put those in the chat, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. So let's see who we have with us here today. And once again, this is exploring the role of agility in the future of healthcare. So, as you could probably conclude, the ladies I have with me are all part of the healthcare industry. So, let's start with Olive. Will you please share with us who you are, what you do?
Oh, pleasant good morning, everyone, and thank you so very much for joining us. That was an amazing introduction
Yeah.
for the session. I really, really enjoyed that. As leaders, sometimes we keep going, we forget to look at the important things that help us, the tools that help us along the way. Anyway, I digress. My name is Olive Gay, and I came here from Jamaica many, many years ago. But since then, I was human resource executive for Orlando International, an Orlando executive airport. And then I left to start a home health care company, thinking I would give back to the elderly, treat them in a dignified manner, as most weren't being treated when they get to that stage. But since then, Gen Care has grown, so now we have a home care industry that care for pediatric, the elderly. We have an unskilled team, and our recent addition is a pediatric daycare for kids with mental and physical disability. So, a huge organization under the umbrella of Gen Care Resources.
Awesome. That's excellent. Thank you. All
Yeah.
right, Hazel.
Well, hi, good morning, everyone. So great to be here. Like Olive, this has just been amazing so far, and I'm excited to be a part of this discussion. So, I'm Hazel Patterson, and I'm in the Maryland area, right outside of Washington, D.C. And I'm a registered nurse. I have been a registered nurse for 32 years. I'm dating myself, but yeah, 32, 32 years. Um, I basically most of my experience was clinical at the bedside, in a critical care arena. I am now the CEO of Professional Services Network. We just say PSN. That's a mouthful. Professional Services Network Incorporated. And I have been with PSN as the CEO since 2020. Yes, 2020.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
Great. Happy to have you. All right, Diane.
Sure, thank you. And what a wonderful opportunity it is to participate. It's so funny. It doesn't matter how many years that you've led. There are always pearls of wisdom that you learn, and it really caused me to reflect this morning as I listened in. I'm happy that I was able to reorganize my calendar to actually fully participate. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me to be here. And good morning, everyone. So just a little bit about me, and then I'll talk a little bit about my company. My background is I've spent a lot of years in leadership, progressive leadership. Uh, I was the vice president of clinical services and chief nurse executive for Montefiore Health System in New York. Got recruited to Hackensack University Medical Center, which is now the largest hospital, flagship hospital for Hackensack Meridian Health. Worked there, I can't believe that, for 15 and a half years, and then got recently recruited to start a new position with a newly formed company. They were existing before, but they merged. And so it's Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, which is in the Puget Sound area of Washington State. Didn't know I would be working on the West Coast, but it's been an exciting new opportunity. I'm based in Seattle. We serve, as I said before, the Puget Sound area, and we have a team of 18,000 and
Mhm.
nearly 5,000 employed physicians and affiliated providers. We have 11 hospitals and over 300 ambulatory care sites. Our parent company is Common Spirit Health, which is located in Chicago, and it is one of the largest health systems in the country. We are actually in 21 states, coast to coast. We have over 1,000 care sites, and we serve about 20 million patients in big cities and small towns across the country. So it's really been a great opportunity for me, a great learning opportunity, and stretching me in my leadership. So again, thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. As you all can hear, we have a panel with a wealth of knowledge and experience. So we're looking forward to their responses to our questions today. Of course, we heard earlier in our keynotes about clarity and about awareness. And now we're going to talk a little bit about agility, and specifically as it relates to the healthcare industry. So my first question for you all is, we see in various industries that they're experiencing a lot of challenges, whether it's talent shortages, low employee engagement, difficulty leading the hybrid teams, and of course, we've all heard of the Great Resignation. So are you all experiencing any of these challenges that I just mentioned, or do you have any more that you can add to that list?
Do you want Hazel, Olive, do you want to go first? I'll follow, or do you want me to start?
You can start. I'll follow.
Okay, so yeah, Natasha, thanks for your question. So I don't think it comes as any surprise, particularly because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which really has left actually not only our country, but the world reeling, but particularly in the healthcare industry. Workforce shortages, as we know, we're at a very critical point across all industries, but particularly in healthcare, and I'm sure Hazel and Olive will add to that and agree. And so as a result, similar to so many other companies, not just in healthcare, workforce is a top priority for us and it's a continuous discussion at Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, and our leaders are now constantly seeking continued workforce guidance. Key areas of significant concern include, as you mentioned, Latasha, chronic staffing vacancies. We have a decrease in experienced and qualified applicants. We have increased compensation demands, and even though our bottom lines, we're struggling. We have nursing burnout, exhaustion. People are frankly disillusioned. We're confronting high premium labor use. We are seeing an increased time to fill positions, so our HR leaders are very challenged. Our RNs, but we have across the workforce, but particularly RNs, are leaving inpatient roles or the profession altogether, because people have rethought their lives, right? So many of us have rethought. I did not know I would be on the West Coast, but here I am. So I guess I would fit under the I don't like to call it the Great Resignation. I call it the Great Rethinking.
Okay.
The Great Rebalancing, the Great Level Setting, the Great Reflection. And so we recognize that while nursing shortages have always been a challenge, this is not a new conversation. What we are experiencing, however, is pretty new, because in the past it was cyclical. Now this is here to stay. So we know that there are going to be more tough years ahead before things are going to worsen before they get better. And I'll pause there.
Okay.
I completely agree with Diane. There are a list of things you said. What are we facing? How about all of the above? Every single one of them my agency is facing. And it opened itself that when the pandemic started, of course, nobody knew what they were doing. But like Diane says, there has always been a healthcare worker shortage. And this is just, the pandemic has just excavated that shortage. And so our agency now, yes, we see the great exodus. Our older nurses, and I work with, when I just started the business, I had one by my side helping me. They've all exited. As Diane have said, they have rethought their life. Many people who thought that, I could not be home. What am I going to do if I'm home? The pandemic showed us that, I like being at home. So they decide not to come. I know of a great nurse from a very well-known facility here and in Orlando, and they're leaving their profession to go into construction. So, not only are we just losing, and as for me, as a business, I can't compete with the large hospitals and their unlimited budget and stuff like that. So some of our nurses that we train, they're going to these institutions because they're paying them more. But I can't compete because of my reimbursement rate and things
Joint
like
venture,
that.
Olive, joint venture.
Yeah, so yes, this pandemic has really, and another thing it has caused too is speaking from a leader standpoint, is a rising cost of our payroll, because
Mhm.
everybody now wants more.
Yeah.
But then from a leader's standpoint, if your reimbursement is not more, how do you pay that more? So yes, it has affected us in every single avenue that you can think of.
Okay. Well, all right. Hazel, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with the ladies. Like their agencies, entities, and all of the other entities here at PSN, we were literally blindsided. So I believe, like Diane said, a combination of burnout. For us, we saw resistance to the vaccine mandate and burnout. My director of clinical services, she's here on this chat, and she would tell me this is scary. She would tell me that young nurses who had, let's say, 5 years or under, they would be calling our agency, asking, hey, is there anything else that you can offer us? We are just tired. We cannot do the bedside anymore. And initially it was a head scratching moment for me because of the crisis. The hospitals were literally throwing these astronomical amounts of hourly salaries to nurses, and one particular hiring platform that we worked with at the time, we were like, what's happening? And they told us that for every 12 jobs, there was one nurse. I mean, this is scary. And, when I think about pre-pandemic, we had about over 3 million nurses in the United States of America, but that number was never really adequate because of our growing baby boomer population and the rise in comorbidities. That number never really helped with the staffing issues that we have had. On top of it, 17 to 30% of new nurses quit after their first year, and another 30 to 57% quit after their second year. So there were issues prior to the crisis of the pandemic that weren't really addressed. Now you have a crisis, these issues that always existed come together for a perfect storm. And here we had a mass exodus, and continue to, unfortunately, a mass exodus of healthcare workers. But I am happy for platforms like this. As bad as the pandemic has been, it has allowed us to now have discussions.
Right.
How are we going to deal with issues that existed prior and continue to exist? How are we going to come together to create solutions?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. We were talking about agility. You all have pointed out a lot of the challenges. Obviously, you all are still operating, so that means that you have had to make some adjustments. In the book, in chapter 5, it talks about agility. Jamie references the dinosaur versus the cockroach. The dinosaur is a strong, powerful animal that is now extinct, and the cockroaches, you can still find them in several places. So what was the difference between this dinosaur and the cockroach? The cockroach learned to adapt. So my question to you ladies is, how have you adapted? How have you pivoted based on these challenges to make sure that you're still successful with your business or the organizations that you work for? We'll start with you, Olive, this time.
Okay. As a leader, you're forced to find solutions. You have to be a visionary. So some of the things we have done, our training has always been good with training of the nurses and sending them out there in the field. We've partnered with communities such as Career Source and medical schools. We've offered hiring bonuses and referral bonuses. We've increased employee engagement and any other employee retention programs that we have. That so that we can continue. We have advertised to let people know who we are, what we are, and what do we do differently. What makes us stand out? Our core value or dignity and respect for everyone. So the employees are mirroring that. They're employing that in their everyday work. The patients, they know that, and our partners out there know that. We're involved in the community to let them, to see what we are, who we are doing, the services that are available to them, and what we can provide to them. And as we do that, we have a division called the Agency for Persons with Disability. This is an unskilled division. Now, I was losing all these workers to the Amazons and those out there, but now, you'll see me in Washington, in Tallahassee, lobbying not lobbying, but talking to lawmakers, trying to advocate for our industry. So I do that in addition to making sure the company is growing, and I retain the employees that I have.
That's great. That's excellent. Excellent. Diane?
Sure, thanks. So first of all, I just agree with everything that Olive has said. We've actually lost team members, not just at Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, but Common Spirit. For example, you mentioned Amazon. Amazon has wandered into the health space. And one of the things that I always say is that if we don't figure it out, the Amazons of the world will.
That's right.
And one of the things about Amazon that I've always admired is that they are not afraid of failure. I think in the book, I read that Jamie touched on sort of our dinosaur thinking, right? And so Amazon is not a dinosaur. We tend in healthcare, and this was pre-pandemic, we tend to be so traditional. We are very fearful. We're very timid of wandering into the unknown. And so I believe that has really, that hurt us during the pandemic. But as Hazel said, what I would call the hard truth, we have to confront the hard truth. So that's a conversation that we're having in our system. Let us confront the hard truth. And let us not say we cannot because of the challenges. The words that we choose will be in spite of, despite what we are confronting. How are we going to move ahead? And so having recognized and we have accepted that the shortages, the challenges that we face are not cyclical, and that there are tough times ahead. We are, as Olive mentioned, we have fierce competition. We've had to confront wage wars with our competitors. And so we do recognize that relying on expensive contract labor, which was mentioned before by both of my colleagues, is just not a sustainable strategy. Your business will go under. It doesn't matter if you are a large national company. It doesn't matter if you are self-employed, if you're running your own firm. It's not sustainable. Expensive labor is not sustainable because I think Olive mentioned and Hazel, they talked about reimbursement. So let me just give you a couple of examples in terms of what we're doing to push more creative and agile thinking. We are laser focused on workforce conditions. I was very happy to hear, especially the second speaker, both speakers were fabulous, but the second speaker talked about focusing on workforce. Let us accept that our workforce is in control. They were always in control, but we didn't recognize it. So now let's just accept the hard truth that the workforce is in control. And that's not a bad thing because you hire a lot of smart people, let them do their jobs, and people buy into what they help to create. So let us include them in the decision making. They have more answers. Everything does not have to be top down. So we are focused on a lot of professional development, well-being programs, really investing in well-being programs because we have to take care of our team members and their families. If your families if your family's not okay, then you're not going to be okay in the workforce. Professional development, career trajectory discussions, we're starting those early. So even if you are a new hire, a new graduate, we're going to start talking to you about where do you see yourself in the next year or two.
Right.
We don't see turnover as leaving an inpatient unit. We see turnover as leaving our company. So you know what? If you leave Virginia Mason Franciscan Health to go to Tennessee, as long as you're still working for Common Spirit Health, we measure that as retention. We do not see that as a bad thing, even if you've only spent a year at Virginia Mason Franciscan Health. The other thing that we're doing is we're pushing increased flexibility in work schedules. I mentioned focusing on career development. We are pushing on more highly competitive wages, and we are providing increased virtual work options for roles that we can. For example, HR does not have to be on site, or IT team does not have to be on site. I recently approved our entire education team to have remote work options, 100% if you want, because we know that in education, in the education space, we saw the success of even medical schools when we had medical students that were going to class online. And so we have to ask ourselves, what can we change in our industry? Right. Because we were able to test that hypothesis, and we proved the hypothesis that we did not harm patients while we had some people working virtually. Those are lessons learned that we now need to build on. So we're working on that. That includes bringing virtual. We have the benefit of having what we would call a mission control system. And it's like an air traffic control system that really uses artificial intelligence to look at capacity management across our system. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be including virtual care, utilizing our mission control so that we can hire nurses that are more virtual nurses. So again, if you're a wheelchair bound nurse, you may not be able to lift patients, but we can use your knowledge through virtual control monitoring, for example, precepting a new nurse. So that goes into the flexibility that the Amazons of the world are offering. So if Amazon says to someone, we can offer you remote work, well, the Virginia Mason Franciscan Health Company is going to say, hold on a minute, don't leave us. Let me offer you a virtual work schedule. Okay. I've talked a lot, so let me pause there. I don't want to, I have a lot of more things to share. However, I want to respect my colleagues and give them time to have input. So I will pause there.
No, that was a lot of great information. It seems like your organization has not taken this lightly and are really putting some effective things in place. Hazel, is there anything that hasn't been mentioned that you wanted to add to all this that you all are doing?
I think they, pretty much covered it, but, I just love the spin on, respecting your team members. One of the things that I put in place when I came onto PSN, and this is internally. So PSN, I did not, please forgive me, I did not say initially what PSN does. We are a nurse staffing agency. Okay, so we provide nurses to the clinical setting or to the managed care setting, which is the quality side of healthcare companies. And also we provide consultants to companies like insurance companies, clinics that are preparing for certain accreditations. But anyway, so internally, I realize the stress that the pandemic and just the changing situation of our ever-changing situation of our society and all of the stresses that comes with it. And I believe Diana is the one who mentioned, take care. You got to take care of not just your team member, but their family members. And so we instituted 10-hour work days, but 4 days a week. So our employees have a 4-day weekend. And so this is our internal staff. They have a 4-day work weekend. You work 10 hours a day, but you have an hour for lunch. And, with all the stresses that people have to deal with, we really emphasize a non-toxic work environment. And, it's a culture that we are attempting to introduce. The company was in place for 30 years prior to my taking over, and some of the former employees came over with me. So it's like we cannot talk enough. Hey, this is what we're trying to emphasize. We're almost over communicating, but you can't speak enough to, hey, this is the work environment that we want. And when you have your team members on board, then they are willing to adapt with changes that come. And that to me helps to promote an agile environment in the work organization.
Awesome. I was looking at our time. I can't even believe we only have 2 minutes before we have to join.
Oh, wow.
You knew that this was going to be a feat because there's so much information that needs to be shared. But I know there were some people asking questions in the chat, and thank you for responding to them in the chat. But I did want us to cover, since we're talking about the book, The Face of Leadership, please get it if you don't have it already. We heard about clarity. We heard about awareness. We're talking about agility and making different shifts. But I wanted to ask you all some of the other concepts such as failure, foresight, confidence, energy, and execution. These are some of the other things that the book highlights. How do you see that playing into what you all are doing in the healthcare system? And you can take any one of them: failure, foresight, confidence, energy, execution. How are those playing a role in the success of your organizations right now?
I wanted this. May I go first?
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. I was looking at the chat. Unless Hazel, Olive, did you want to go first?
No.
Okay,
fine.
good. Yeah.
No, go right ahead.
Yes, I'm big on agility. I touched on some concepts that we've been able to push. And I think, so what we have to recognize is that the faster you go, somebody else is going more quickly than you are.
Yep.
And so I want to underscore the importance also of having the right leaders that will do less debating and more thinking about how do we move quickly. We have to be very intentional, but less hesitant, which we have been. I mentioned before that we tend to be a little slower in our industry. We have to recognize that if we are not agile, we are going to be outmaneuvered, not only by people within our industry or companies within our industry that have already figured it out, but those who want to come into our space, like the Amazons of the world. And I keep focused on Amazon because Common Spirit actually has formed a partnership with them, which is very, in my mind, very strategic. Sometimes you don't compete, you join, because by doing that, you dilute the impact of someone that you're competing with. So we are actually, I think we're having a training program with some of their, they're sending folks to us to become a part of healthcare. Although the suspicious part of me thinks that they're sending them in to learn about healthcare so that they can recruit them back to compete. But that's going to be that's a dialogue for another day. But that's just world according to Diane Arrow. So one of the things that we've recognized is that if we do not demonstrate more agility that has been highlighted in the book, we will become irrelevant in the market. We will be outmaneuvered. We need to bend more. We need to pivot. We need to make those changes quickly. I mentioned the word intentional, but I cannot underscore enough that now more than ever, we need to move rapidly. Otherwise, we will not be successful.
That's right. Olive, any closing?
Yeah, I was just replying to Robert. She said about regulator compliance restraints, and you are so very right. And I'm always standing up to speak that because they have none of us at the table. Healthcare is in a very critical place right now, and the only people who are suffering are those who really rely on us to care for them. So collaboration was one thing I pulled out of the book. There are so many others, but since we're on a crunch for time right now, I'm going to pull that one. If we all get together and look at these things, like Diana mentioned, our industry we need innovation. We need more people getting together and speaking about the problems that we're having or what's coming down the road. because we are going to hit a brick wall if we don't change something. And healthcare is not the old healthcare that we know, so we'd better turn the page and move into the future with healthcare. And you have to be agile. I am happy that I tend to be a visionary and look ahead and see what's coming. And I'm also glad that the box stops with me as a founder and the president. So decisions, I have to make them quickly, because nowadays everything turns on a dime,
That's right.
just like that.
That's right.
So agility is of paramount importance.
Absolutely. All right, Hazel, any final remarks before we go?
Yeah, guys, this book is a must read. I agree with the ladies, what resonated with them. For me, agility, extremely important. PSN is a smaller company. So for me, what hit me was self-awareness. We are all about a culture, about promoting a particular culture. But I believe that culture starts in the C-suite, whether negative or positive. So the language that comes out of the C-suite has to be, one that is pro-team, but that can only come if I first shine a light on myself. So self-awareness really, really resonated with me. If I have the ability to shine a light on myself, see my blind spots, then it gives me the ability to look at people the way I want to be seen. And you would notice I keep using the word team, because we want the C-suite, we want to promote a particular culture. I know that the traditional organizational chart is up down, but PSN, we want a lateral, so that ideas flow back and forth, ideas are flowing. So self-awareness, it starts with me first. Look at my blind spots, my weaknesses, how can I turn them, get on a journey that turns them into strengths that my team will also embrace. And therefore, now as changes come and we have to be agile, it will be embraced by the team.
Excellent, excellent. Well, our time is up. I want to thank you ladies for wonderful discussion. I learned a lot, not being in healthcare myself. I learned a lot about the industry and how it's impacted you all. I'm sure those who were with us also learned a great deal. And thank you for your responses in the chat. That's also very helpful. I'm thinking that this is probably going to be a discussion that will continue on another time, that will be extended, because there's so much more that we didn't get to at such a needed conversation. But thank you all. We appreciate you being here. It's now time for us to transition back to the live stage so we can hear the final presentation. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Latasha.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
Right,
Thanks everyone.
Thanks.
I hope you get something from this session.
Yeah. Let's go over.
Okay. Do we go back?
Yes, go back to the live stage.